Todd and Rob in the afternoon.
Afternoon Delight.
With Todd and Rob. Oh, yeah.
Hey, Rob, here we are, the New Media Show. Another week, another day. Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. It's been a few weeks since we've done just you and I, kind of two solo.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been busy per se this week, doing a little bit of research. And for many years ago, I was doing some live audio streaming only, and we had done it for CES events and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Just a standard IceCast, Shoutcast stream, and that service basically had not been updated in like 10 years. So I can't believe I was still paying for it. So I canceled that service and I signed up with a new company, and now we are officially live streaming via audio today, because I am taking the preparatory steps for the Podcast 2.0 lit tag, so that when we get that in place, then we can go lit and they can hear our live audio stream in conjunction if they want to watch the live video stream. So today, not only are we live from a video standpoint, we're live on IceCast Shoutcast server. Now, it really doesn't mean too much, because the only place it's linked to is on newmediashow.com/live. I don't have it really distributed anywhere yet. There's no social on it. But once the show's done today and published, I will take the time. It's got a DJ function. They call it a DJ function. And I can put the show in rotation so that it can be heard. Someone can tune in, either do instant playback, or they join the show halfway in between, like a normal live shoutcast. Now, the question really is, I know that Adam and Dave and those folks, they have their own playlist of shows that are in their AKA stream setup. So what I'm really going to do is make an offer here. Anyone that wants to become join and use this stream, as long as it's not conflicting with this show and Geek News Central, you're more than welcome. I'll set you up a DJ spot, and you can use the live stream for your own podcast. I've got unlimited listeners. It's basically should be well for anyone that wants to push to it, and I can give them their own separate login account. So if any podcasters listening that's thinking they want to play around with a IceCast stream, let me know, and I'll get you set up on there and get you into the schedule. You'll have to tell me when you want to schedule it, so you can come in, or we'll work on a schedule, make sure there's no conflict. So it'd be a little fun, and then we can help the Podcast 2.0 folks that want to become lit and don't necessarily want to do live video.
Yeah, that's awesome, Todd. I know this show has played around with live audio for many years. I think we did a bunch of shows through Spreaker.
Yeah,
for many years that were streamed in just live audio.
Yeah.
So,
and this is not difficult technology at all. I mean, you just
yes, it goes way back.
Yeah, and there's
right?
lots of, and I actually grabbed the Rocket Broadcast client. I'm using the free version right now to see how it works. It's on a Windows machine. God forbid I'm using a Windows machine, and running Windows, I think 11. I don't know what the new number is for Windows.
Windows 11, actually, they just pushed a big update yesterday.
So the Mac, there's not that many Mac streaming options. There's a few that are out there, but anyone that wants to do this, it doesn't take anything of a machine. Matter of fact, I was playing around I have an old Windows 8 machine I was doing some testing with, and it was working just fine. I I wanted to have a laptop here that I could monitor things. And so anyway, so we're live audio stream, we're live video stream, we're a podcast, we're doing everything we can.
Well, I guess we still haven't cracked the the LinkedIn nut yet. So
Well, that's
the next thing.
As soon as you get your credentials over there for a creator, then we can add LinkedIn to the stack too. But hey, before we get into the stack here very much, I do want to put the word out because we have gotten some boost, and we received 5,000 sats from Scott Cora. He says, "Hey, sending sats, sending support, sending love. Go podcasting." Scott from the Talking Beard podcast. We also got 21,112 sats from Dave Jones. He says, lots to think about in this discussion. My head is full with programmatic advertising with Dave last week. So, Dave, we hope to fill your head again today. So those were the boosts that come in. So we want to thank you for the boost. And also, someone gave us a suggestion. 50,000 sats, and you get a New Media Show, Geek News Central, and Rob, if you'll send me some Libsyn stickers, I will include some Blueberry stickers. We will give you a Blueberry, Libsyn, New Media Show. Of course, God, my building may burn down if I have Libsyn stickers here. Libsyn, Blueberry care package of stickers if you send us 50,000 sats on a boost. So make sure in your boost you include your name and your mailing address. So if Robbie will get me 25 or 30 stickers, we'll make sure we have a little boost package to send back out. So
yeah, that's great. Todd, I wanted to mention too that Dave Jones from the Podcast Index Project, he's going to join us on the show next week.
Oh, that's good. And it's actually good timing because just from an administrative standpoint, October 5th, I will not be available for the show, or 4th, or whatever the date are next. Let me look at the calendar here because I'm all screwed up. Let me go and look at the October. Yes, October 5th, I will be on my way to Reno to hurt my liver.
So it's October, what? Oh, September 28th.
September 28th is good. October 5th is not. I'm going out for a military reunion. Mm-hmm. And I can already feel my liver already.
But you'll have such a great time, Todd.
Yeah, and I'll come back and be hungover for 3 days. So, anyway. So anyway, hey, everyone, welcome to the show. I do want to talk about one thing. Have you heard about OB3? And that's not Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's OB3.
Not sure. Go.
So
go ahead, tell me what it is.
It's a brand new open source stats redirect service.
Oh.
And the difference with it is that it's open source. Mm-hmm. Anyone that uses it will have their numbers publicly seen. It's open for public scrutiny. And so this is primarily for both Dave and Adam. Okay, so when I listened to their show on Friday, I understand why the desire is to start a brand new redirect and make it open source. But we've been doing this since 2006, and while the technology is relatively simple to put forward, the filtering is a very, 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 very complicated process to get right.
Yeah. Right.
So, the basic stuff of being able to get rid of bots and that kind of stuff should be pretty easy for them to code up. And I think that that'll be the biggest challenge for them, is to get the data to the point where it's not super inflated. Mm-hmm. I think they can probably get 80% of the way there very, very quickly. The other 20% is only going to be learned over time and collection of, literally, they're going to have to be in the millions and looking at data to see where things are not looking right, where there's trends, where they see stuff that doesn't make sense. And I think some of the folks are surprised when they were talking about hashed IPs, and like that being some sort of interesting thing. And I was like, we've been hashing IPs for years to be GDPR, CCPA. Of course, no one can see that. They have to trust us that we are hashing IPs. And in this example, they won't. You can actually see that the IPs are hashed. But another thing they're going to have to watch out for is it's real easy to count stuff that shouldn't be counted. I mean, that's the hard part on this. And what I've always
bots and stuff like that. Is that what you're talking about?
I think the bots they'll be able to figure out, but it's real easy to have a number that's much higher than it should be, because they're probably not going to be following any of these rules that we fully understand is important, far as how many times you count a specific IP, the list that you have available for exclusion list. The exclusion lists themselves are extensive. We pay big money every year for ongoing daily update of an exclusion list of servers, just plain servers. They're going to have a little bit of time to build inclusion list, and meaning they're going to have to figure out what is. And the thing is, what's interesting is the inclusion list is going to be much smaller than they probably will even imagine, largely because the way the modern internet works now. It used to be a lot of people were behind. They would access their content from work via their work computer. Well, that's not the case anymore. People are consuming content at work from their phone. Right. So the inclusion lists are very, very minor now as compared to exclusion lists. The exclusion list is the ones that are, extensive, and you can only learn that with time.
From data gathering, right.
And the data gathering on that. But when we talk about IP hashing, what, for those of you that don't understand this, is example when you hit a Chartable pod sites, when you hit Podbean, you hit Blueberry, you hit OB3, you hit any of these new or any of these existing redirect sites, you get the raw IP that goes in the log. And then how often you want to process that log to get rid of the crap. And really, the crap could make up 60% of those hits on those media files that you're going to just throw away because it's junk. It's 50. It's definitely 50% of the stuff that comes in is junk, and you have to dump all that. So I think that until they get their hands around, and I'm not discouraging this at all, but I'm just saying they're going to have to get their hands around the metric data that is the real stuff, the real plays of the content.
And they're probably not going to be able to afford getting IAB's.
I don't think they would ever want to.
Really?
Yeah, okay. I think they're going to do their own thing. But I will say that one thing that the Podcast 2.0 folks need to understand that I think we haven't been necessarily talked down to about stats, but there is skepticism in that space on the validity of the data. And to be honest with you, I want to count.
Going which way, Todd? Is it?
I think they just don't. I don't think they
these
just
open platforms.
No, I think
IAB certified platforms.
I don't think they trust the numbers or the methodology. And
for who? For
the certified host. Yeah, the certified host. So believe me, I don't want to leave any clippings on the cutting room floor. I want to count every valid download. And what we found using the redirect, and I've talked about this publicly on this show before, is that the difference between hosted log data and redirect log data, and I'm giving the secrets here on how they can fine ground truth on their information, is hosted log data is the best you're ever going to get as far
It's
as
complete data.
it's
right?
complete.
It's complete data.
It shows
Right.
shows if the file delivered completely. It shows if they've come back 6 hours, 12 hours later and continued to download the file again. That's what we've done over the years, is learn how to splice these plays back together. So if someone listened to a half a show on a morning commute and they came back in the afternoon and they hit play again and continued, we're able to splice that back together and say, okay, that's still a 1. It's not a 2. And the log data gives you the ability to do that, whereas the redirect data does not. And you will always, because of the additional filtering that you have to do, because you just can't always guarantee that it was a true play or download, you have to throw it out. So what we see is our redirect data, and no one else talks about this.
Mm-hmm.
No one has said this ever. Chartable doesn't talk about this. Podsites doesn't talk about this. Podtrac doesn't talk about this. Redirect data will always be lower, and ours is 5 to 13% lower.
Lower because it's not counting everything, or
Because
is it
we just can't validate
it.
We just can't validate every download. And then what I've had to do in order to get our redirect certified, our hosted log files were certified first, and we didn't get the redirect certified until round 2.
Mm-hmm.
We had to build a model that basically we have to verify our model every 90 days. We have to run raw log data against redirect data that are basically a number of shows that are running both redirect and hosted, and we basically see if our model is still right or if we have to tweak it a little bit to either throw some stuff out or to include it. That's part of our certification, and what really took a long time, a lot of money, a lot of looking at the code, a lot of running millions and millions of downloads and doing comparisons, and okay, what happens with Apple Podcast versus on a download log or a redirect log? What's the difference between Pocket Cast on a download and a redirect log? What's the difference between Overcast on a download and a redirect? What is the difference? Case by case by case by case.
Right.
To build a model that basically allowed us to say, yes, the redirect data is certified. The play download numbers that you get there can be taken to the bank, can be used for reporting to whoever you want to report to. And I stand behind it, and I'm willing to go to the audit bank if I need to audit content. So if they get that right, if OB3 figures this out,
Mm-hmm.
all those shows will still have 10 to 20. Let's say that it was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
They're still going to be throwing stuff on the cutting floor
Mm-hmm.
because they won't be able to qualify every transaction that happens with a media download or a media play. And no one else talks about this.
Todd, my question at this point is, why do we need another redirect platform?
They just, I think what they want is, I don't think what it is they don't trust. Okay, I say that I hash IPs and I'm GDPR, CCPA compliant. I say that. I have it in writing. I have it as part of my IB certification. That's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
All these other companies have their own policy statements. I know Libsyn hashes their log files too.
Mm-hmm.
But what is happening, okay, for someone that's concerned about listener privacy? If you're concerned about listener privacy and attribution and reselling, do you really trust all these players in the space? Do you trust the other companies that are measuring not to use that IP data to remarket to podcasters to sell that data. That I think most of them say they don't.
Okay, so you're concerned about
I'm not concerned.
these. Well, I mean, just in concept here, we're
Right.
concerned about the proprietary ownership of these redirect platforms being utilized as industry
Absolutely.
redirect
Yeah,
platforms
yeah.
versus having a platform that is an industry platform. It's not specifically owned by
Right.
any of the major players that has a vested interest
That's right.
in that.
And it's
that
open.
technology.
The
Right.
code can be reviewed. The code can be submitted to. The code can be analyzed. I'm sorry, Podcast 2.0. I'm not helping you with your redirect. It's not in my business interest to do so, but it's in my podcast interest to say you got a lot of work to do.
Well, I guess it raises a bigger question. What's the purpose of the redirect? If the purpose of the redirect is to consolidate the industry into having some sort of a
No,
consolidated view of the industry, or is it just for advertising purposes? And if that's the case,
No.
then it doesn't
it's
it doesn't negate what's being done out there right now.
I'm not going to speak to the creator of this, but his basic point that I talked about in chat was it's open. You can audit. You can see how they're measuring. You can submit code. So
Okay.
it's transparency.
Okay, it's more of a third-party verification platform.
Well, I don't even call it that. It's an open, transparent platform.
Right. Okay.
And I'll probably sneak a show in there at some point and do some A/B comparison to see how they're doing. I won't say if my devs have went in and looked at the code and give me hints on where they need work yet. I'll actually say they haven't, but I'm not saying that they're not going to. But I think that I think there's a general, in certain circles, there might be a general distrust of some of the IEB data. But I'm going to, I go back and I say, listen.
Because there is some variability in the IEB data.
There's some variability.
Inherent in the fact that it's a guideline.
Right.
It's not a
strict
standard.
spec.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a standard.
Right.
But I think the industry probably needs to have a standard. I just don't know the industry would ever.
I don't think it'll
get to a point where everybody would agree to it.
No.
That's the real problem.
I think too that there is a. I told in a Twitter thread that I would go into some of the history and for this may be old news for those that listen to the show for a while, but when the IEB first started to look at podcast measurement, Libsyn, Podtrac, and Blueberry were not part of the initial discussion. And when we heard and found out that there was a discussion going on with a variety of individuals in the podcasting space, we put our money where our mouths were, and each company did, and wrote those big checks to join to, if nothing else, help, how can I say this gently? Help moderate the discussion.
Right. Well, and to make it representative of the whole industry,
right?
Not just a certain segment of the industry, I think is
there.
Way to look at it.
That process was painful.
Yeah, it was.
And because no matter what group you belong to, there's always somebody's got an agenda, and they think they're right.
Yeah, and that was on full display at every call that I was on.
So
during the early days
we have to be careful here, Rob. Don't talk about anybody here. We'll get in trouble. All right, literally, we will. There was great, robust discussions amongst many parties.
Right.
Some more robust than others, but it really boiled down to a meeting that happened in Las Vegas, where at NAB we got I didn't go to the meeting. 20 or 25 of the principals that were part of that discussion. Angelo, my CIO at the time, went in with printouts of information, and they had a discussion. And that was the turning point where it wasn't emotion that drove the discussion anymore. It was the data and the science that drove the discussion.
Well, that's what it converted over to.
It's what it converted over to.
Right. That wasn't what was going on before.
No.
Right.
So from that point forward, progress was made in the guidelines document and the different caveats of how long we're going to look at an IP, how many times we're going to count an IP, all these variables.
Yeah, we got in the weeds of the
we got in the
data.
weeds. We wanted to have a much tighter specification, and Blueberry today operates on a much tighter specification than what the IEB standards call for, because when you're in a group, there is compromise, and that's why there's
it's good and bad at the same time, Todd. I think it was good to have. I mean, it would be good to have a standard,
right,
but it also left open the market for some improvement and some innovation too.
So
right?
that
to have it just be a guideline.
So that's why there's variability in numbers.
Right.
That's why when you come to Blueberry and you get 1,000 downloads and you go to another platform and you get 1,200, it's how tight did we tighten on the spec?
It's the white list, the block list. It's all that
it's
stuff.
It's the time. It's the how many times you count the IP.
Right.
It's some people are not restitching. All these things, and to be honest with you, we didn't want to show all our cards and how deep we went with the data analysis and the scrutinizing of the data, because from day one, when Angelo started building the platform, I had one rule: a one's a one.
Well, and accurate stats back then was a competitive advantage, supposedly.
And
right?
I didn't want I didn't want to overvalue the download. One should not be a 3, because if it's a 3, it means it's 1/3 less valuable if it's counted as a 3 and it's actually a 1.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why there's variability in the numbers a little bit. It depends on how tight the people follow the guidelines or go beyond. So
there's always an incentive in the market to have the numbers be higher. So that's where the rub was.
I didn't have an incentive to have the numbers be higher. I had the incentive to keep the value, and we keep talking about value,
right?
The value of a listener to be much higher, because it goes back to the simple thing. We know of a certain company that probably still today counts by 6s. So what if you have $20 and you market $20 to one person, you get $20 worth of value. But if you take $20 and you market to 6 people, the value of that is $3.20 or something, right? It's less value of the marketing value. So for me, it was always better to have a tight number, but not leaving anything on the cutting floor, so that we get the true value of what a listener is. Now, I heard
not everybody in the podcasting space was looking at the podcasting space like that.
Well, that's for sure.
Yeah, they weren't looking at the value of a listener. They were looking at the biggest number to present on a CPM model to an advertiser. So it depends on who you're catering to.
Which was causing some eroding of the value of advertising. Now,
and confidence on the buying side.
Yeah. So there was a very, very interesting discussion that happened, whereas if you look at the value for value model, if you know what your number is, and if you, let's say it's 1,000, this one made me kind of go, oh, that's cool. So if you know 4 to 10% of your audience will convert in value for value and doing a contribution, whether it be $1, $1,000, or $10,000, whatever it may be as a contribution, you can very quickly figure out what your value per thousand is. Right. And Adam came up with this number. I thought, wow, that's awesome. So you could actually back it out and say, okay, if you know 4 to 10% is going to contribute, and I've got 1,000 listeners, and I've gotten, $400, then I'm earning a $400 value, a VPM model. Or if it's $40, it's a $40 per 1,000 listeners. I've got a $40 VPM, and from a value for value model. So that was a brand new term. That was brilliant, by the way. So I just think that there doesn't need, and again, I wish the OP3 team and the folks that contribute code over there the best of luck. I've spent, since 2006 refining code. I'm not going back and refining someone else's code, and learned all the hard lessons and, all the things that can show up and do, and people that are trying to commit fraud and everything else that you can imagine underneath the sun, click farms in India and, the whole 9 yards. So I think that, it'll be interesting to watch how that develops over time, because this is truly the first time that there is an open, non-private, non-company controlled measurement platform. But I wouldn't be billing against that right now.
So Todd, why do you think we need this right now?
I don't think we need it, but I also have a commercial interest in saying we don't need it. So I have an agenda. So
why was it important for you to talk about it today?
Because I think that I've heard over the past couple of years, these under rumblings about people that have been concerned about the IAB standards.
Right. Okay.
And I'm not saying that the reason they launched, the reason it was launched was because of that. I may not even understand the politics of that at all. But I think there's a few in the space that are, well, it's first of all, it's expensive to get certified.
I would also just comment too that the redirect side of podcast metrics has always been at the fringes. It hasn't been the primary, right? I think in the early days of the IAB, there was a lot of controversy around even the IAB even certifying a redirect.
That's why we didn't get certified the first round,
right?
Because we didn't even want to tackle it. That's when I was literally shocked when PodTrack got certified with their redirect. I was like, how? How did they do that without real hosted data logs? Because we could see the delta. We weren't oblivious to the delta in the numbers.
I mean, unless we're trying to create a global metrics chart that's not biased by a particular, but
most podcasters are not going to use it because they don't want their numbers out there.
Exactly. And they also, so I'm not really sure how this is going to be accepted or adopted, or I'm really skeptical of it, actually.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. And again, it'll be interesting to see who comes in and contributes code to help, because initially I can almost be guaranteed if there hasn't been a significant amount of thought, right? We've got several thousand lines, maybe more than that. I think it was 4,000 or 5,000 lines of code that does nothing but just work on the removable of junk. I literally think it's that big, and along with a whole bunch of reference data that it has to pull. I'm not a coder, but there's significant code. It's like, well, it took us 30 hours to get through the code just on how we process an IP. One IP, what happens is it comes through the pipeline And what happens as it gets checked and where it gets thrown out and allows to pass and all these other variables that come in. That's why processing stats is hard. It's really, really hard. And things change. And again, things change on a daily basis. You have to be watching on a daily basis, because if a new server gets spun up somewhere and someone starts pinging, you need to know the IP of that server to put it on the exclusion list. It's not that dramatic, but it can be.
Right.
And the only way, go ahead.
I'm just curious. I mean, I think we've both wanted to have industry level functions like this,
sure,
right? That operated at not a business interest perspective from the standpoint of a competitive position, like we see today, with a lot of these redirect platforms that are converted into ranking charts and all this kind of like that. And then those ranking charts come out and they are
they're incomplete.
I don't know if it's misrepresent, but they give an impression about the size or significance of a given network, given the proportion of content creators that are in that platform, that aren't really reflective of the overall industry. And that's the danger.
I look at our top 20 podcasters, and just Blueberry's top 20 alone would disrupt several of the list, Podtrack and a couple of the others. It would disrupt that list in itself.
So that's how I look at this, Todd. I look at it from the standpoint of, well, where could this redirect live that would be, for lack of a better term to use, nonpartisan, right? Well, that could be utilized by the whole industry to come up with a master list. Right?
Again, I don't, without a significant contribution of code,
that's not going to happen. Right.
And if they do get a significant contribution of code, to look out for fraud, to look out for all the things that we're having to filter on today, they're going to end up with wrong numbers. And usually it's on the inflated side.
Yeah, is this a project for the up and coming? I don't know if I should even say it yet.
Probably not yet. I don't think so. But here's the problem, though, Rob. We can wish right here in one hand that we have industry list of all the numbers of the top 500 shows in the industry.
Right.
Most podcasters don't care about that. They don't care. They're not in that top 500 list. So I'm not here to serve that top 500. I'm here to serve, it's those entities are going to do what they're going to do commercially. We got to make sure that the ones that are under 500 are, number one, have enough to pay their hosting bill.
But those folks aren't going to, unless there's some benefit in being a part on a redirect program. And I'm not even sure that the whole concept of a redirect really adds a lot of value to anybody. Well,
if everyone was using it, there would be able to have the ability for everyone to be able to see this data. That's for sure.
Right.
And that therein lies one potential. But again, I don't think you're going to get iHeart. They probably don't even care. They don't even know about this.
Well, they want to be on the ranking chart or the redirect that's going to make them look the best.
Right.
Not be on one that includes everybody that they wind up showing ranked 25 out of, or something.
And I just kind of chuckle, it's because Charter will just reduce their prices by 50% on their entire product line, which I found interesting. And we've given free stats for customers since 2006.
Well, it's a free for all out there, Todd. There's all these new companies wanting to offer the same services as what they're doing. So
that's right.
That's the fallout from that.
But I don't care what Chartable does. I don't care what Podtrack does. I don't care what Podsites does. If they're not hosting the media, it's still not as accurate
totally.
as the raw log file.
Yep.
And
That's why it's of lower value on the ranking chart. Of
well,
even
it's from a billing
having it.
standpoint,
Right.
to me, if I'm billing on any of those companies' numbers, you've just probably left 5, 7, 10% of your. Some people say, "Oh no, ours is perfect as downloads." Prove it. That's what I'm going to say. Prove it.
It's not gonna
No, it's not going to be as good as the raw
It's the
CDN
real
log.
server log
Right.
files.
Right. Can't be. If
Well,
they,
just by its very technology nature, it never will be.
No.
There's going to be a delta there.
yeah, and ours is, we know what our delta is, and I think we're in a unique position to say that, because I don't think it's Chartable's not hosting media. Podsites isn't either. So unless they've taken raw log files from a partner and did a comparison, and they can say, "Oh, ours are 1-for-1," then I'm going to really raise my eyebrow.
Yeah.
But none of them will say that.
I mean, Todd, let's talk and just be clear so everybody understands why there is less data on a redirect, and that's just because of the very nature of what a redirect is.
Right.
It just redirects traffic.
Yep. And you don't get that
once that redirect happens,
it's
you
gone.
lose the data.
Yeah.
Right.
In certain instances, we get more in others, but usually it's nothing. It's here and gone.
It's essentially a ping. Is all
Yeah.
it is. I mean, it's
To an extent.
Right.
And I don't even try to be the technical person. And there's different layers of information that happens during a redirect,
Sure.
depending on what has hit the redirect, I guess,
Mhm.
for a better word. But still,
Right, and how fast the connections are too.
the speed of the connection has
It-
minimal. But the problem that's going to get into is somebody's going to say, "Oh, I want to be on Blueberry, I want to be on OB3, I want to be on Podtrack, and I want to be on Chartable."
And you have like 6 redirects.
Well, I think the limit
your
is actually
URLs.
5, technically.
Yeah.
But you have to be careful, because if you're on a platform that is doing media insertion or ad insertion, there could be another 1 or 2
Right.
in
top of
that
that.
process, on top of that
Right.
process. So,
Right.
be careful, test carefully. And another thing too is, if one of those hosts go down, then you're out. You can't be delivered. And
Plus, Todd, this is one part I've never been really clear on, but at the end of the redirect, the origin host, does it lose access to some data
No.
that would be there if
No.
it was a direct?
no,
Okay.
they don't. Yeah, that's why
That's
the hosted.
good.
That's why the hosted data is the best.
Right. Okay.
And it is interesting in that we just recently, I was a little, every once in a while I get a crawl on the back of my neck, and I'm like, we need to test our failover because I have certain rules in place. If the server goes down, if the redirect server goes down, then X number of seconds before server number 2 picks up. And then server number 2, if server number 2 goes down, X number of seconds between server number 3 picking up, because a redirect that is, for me, that's an outage. That's the worst nightmare that I could have, is to have when you got 350 million downloads. And by the way, if you're processing 350 million downloads, you're actually dealing with about 700 to 800 million actually traffic hits a month. The amount of traffic that you actually get on your redirect is actually a double or more than what you actually show in someone's statistics log. So you've got to be able to handle that volume of traffic. And if you do the math, let's take 700 million and you divide that by 30, and then divide that by 24 hours, and then divide that down to the minute. that's a significant amount of traffic coming through that pipeline,
Hmm.
and you cannot go offline. And just a few seconds of being offline, it could be catastrophic. So that's why from our side, we went to 4 nines on reliability, 99.9999. And and believe me, you don't get much time down in a year to maintain that up rate. You'd have a couple of minutes offline, and you busted your allowance for the year. So, and usually if you're off for 3, 4, 5 seconds, no one's going to notice.
Right.
But anything more than that, and it starts becoming recognizable. So, it is you have to be able to trust the person that's running the redirect service to be able to stand that type of volume
Hmm.
on a redirect and not go down. Luckily, the overhead on the servers that do this are very, very light. They're optimized just to do that. So it's not like it's not like you're running Apache.
Right.
Because if you tried to redirect on an Apache server, the thing would collapse in about a New York second.
So Todd, you know that we've been talking about redirects for over a half an hour, and I think we probably
Killed the
most
dead
of our
horse.
audience probably doesn't even know what we're talking about. So, and frankly, I don't know that they need to too much.
Well,
but
You
but that's
you,
okay.
you do come to the show to get a PhD.
Right. Well, yeah. If you understand this stuff, we'll just send you a PhD certificate. You're done.
Some college in
Right.
Australia is offering a PhD in podcasting. By the way, I saw that today.
I did see that too. Yeah. I was like,
So anyway, we'll get off this topic, but good luck, OB3.
Right. Well, there's other stuff brewing out there too of open organizations that we're involved in. I'm not going to say too much more than that at this point, but
Yeah, you guys have been trying to determine a name.
just name. Yeah. And I think we decided on one.
So I guess my domain names, I can just use those for something else. So it looks like.
So, or you can just point them all to this project.
So
I don't even know what the domain that has been acquired. So
well, it has been acquired or has not?
I got the impression that it had been.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well, good.
So, and I know we're now again puzzling our audience.
Yeah,
So-
basically, it doesn't have to be a secret. There was a meeting at Podcast Movement, a Podcast 2.0 meeting. A bunch of folks got together, and there's a number of us that are trying to form a bit of a group to make some decisions, and it's going to be open. It's not like it's going to be this closed thing.
Yeah.
So
It's not a
and
closed group. Just in the sheer name of this thing,
yeah.
it says open. So
yeah,
it's
so
it's really just kind of getting all of our ducks in a row about. It's all about the podcast namespace.
Yeah.
Is what it is, and trying to get the industry to support it.
So anyway, we'll have more on that soon. I'm still not ready to talk about my trip because I have not gotten an airline ticket yet. So until I have an airline ticket, I'm not talking about this forthcoming trip.
Yeah.
So
I'll be honest with you. I wish I was going really, but that's okay.
well, you're going to New York.
I am going to New York.
Yeah,
yes,
so you get
which
to
is not that far for me.
no. Instead, I'm going to be 30 hours on an airplane. So
Yeah, you will be. Yeah.
that'll give everyone a little hint. Going to the other side of the planet.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Layoffs.
Yeah, I thought I would mention that, and then also the Sounds Profitable article that came out from Tom Webster talking about his observation on the keys to growing podcasting, and it's probably not going to be a big surprise to us if we really look at this, but I just was curious about that article and what it might mean as we start thinking about growing listeners, as we think about how radio is evolving or devolving, or however you might say that it may not be if you look at the share of ear data, and this is what Tom was pointing to some degree, was what we're seeing happen is that the percentage of people listening to AM/FM radio is declining, but not really very fast. It's been declining, and then the growth of audio listening on mobile devices is growing as well. It's slowing, but you're starting to see the listeners to radio and the listeners to audio on mobile devices kind of reaching parity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think his thought is that there would be kind of a takeover that would happen. And you typically, when you look at the metrics for AM/FM listeners, they tend to be older, right?
Right.
So it's an opportunity from what he's saying is to be able to migrate these older listeners, which is the baby boomers and all that stuff, over to using their mobile devices more to listen and consume the content. Now, granted, the podcasters were way in that, right?
Yep.
But I think where he's seeing the opportunity is the conversion of people listening to audio content, not just podcasting, but audio content on mobile devices, as maybe a way for us to grow listening to podcasts. So I don't know what you think about that.
I have a little different perspective. I'm a boomer.
Yeah.
Born in 1964. So that gives, I'm right there. I'm the last year of boomers. I started podcasting as a boomer.
I'm a boomer. Yeah.
So, I started podcasting when I was 40. And my audience is always run older. But also my audience was largely nerds and geeks. Mm-hmm. And they were already, they had the advanced mobile phones. They weren't struggling to use the mobile devices in the very beginning when mobile first came out. They were some of the ones that could afford to buy some of those early phones. Now, there is the non-technical segment that did not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have some folks that are, let's go up in the upper end of the boomer age range. If we get into the 80s, I don't think they're in their 80s. What is the top end of boomers? 70 something.
I think it's upper 60s, I think.
So, I don't know. Wherever I go, I see people that are in the upper stages of life that have mobile phones. Now, my mom, she's 82. She's very adept at consuming content on her mobile phone. She listens to podcasts mostly on her iMac, but it's largely because she's sitting around in her bedroom and surfing, and she's listening to podcasts on the side. So I think that it's going to be a hard nut to crack to get past a certain age point. But I think all of us are growing into, I'll have a cell phone till I fall over. So, because you cut my teeth on one. So now I'll consume content and be doing things until I can't see my cell phone no more, if whatever it may be. So if we want to hurry up, I don't know how much more we can to hurry up, because some people are just not going to do, and it's also a socioeconomic thing too. Mm-hmm. When people get older, they have less disposable income. So they throttle back on and typically they throttle back, unless you have a great retirement plan, but most people are surviving on Social Security. So what are they doing? They're listening to content on their television, and they're maybe on their computer,
on their radios, wherever those radios might be.
Yeah.
Right.
So I know out in my our pole barn, we have a radio that just runs continuously out there. That's tuned into a local radio station. I think it keeps the cats company. But I don't know. I just even where I live, I see most people that are older that are on their mobile phones. Now, then again, I don't. They hear I'm a podcaster, and maybe they don't fully understand that, those that are older. So, but I think I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, but they're going to age out at some point.
If you look at the share of ear data that Tom shared in the article, it shows very consistent consumption of AM/FM radio over the last 7 years. It really hasn't varied, and that's not podcast, that's audio.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're talking about here to some degree, but the distribution of podcasts versus radio is what's interesting. We saw podcast consumption back in Q4 of 2020 spike way up,
Right.
but yet radio consumption stayed the same. And actually between Q4 of 2021 and Q2 of 2022, which is when we just finished that,
Right.
The consumption of AM/FM radio on a mobile device went up a little bit. So this isn't entirely a conversation about podcasting. This is a conversation about audio consumption on a mobile device,
Right.
and how there might be more convergence here with radio and podcasting than you and I maybe thought.
But I don't think iHeart is doing anything to move those listeners to the app. I think, don't take me wrong, I think iHeart is desperately trying to get those that are 18 to 40 to listen via iHeart, because they're not listening on the radio.
Right. Well, I think that's a foregone conclusion, that one. I think what this one is focused more is the behavior of boomers, really, if you really want to sum it down.
Yeah. I don't know. I see some pretty savvy boomers. So
I agree.
But,
I mean, we're an example of it, actually.
But
and they are, boomers are consuming quite a bit of podcasts.
In the same token, and I know I don't know what rural America makes up for population wise, what, 10, 15, 20% probably. Bandwidth and connectivity in rural America puts everyone at a disadvantage, 18 to 80. And it's just because it sucks. So you're more inclined to listen to the radio because bandwidth sucks.
Yeah. And smartphones are expensive.
Well,
the data plans are cheaper, but they're still money.
I think very rarely do I see people without a cell phone. I think the bigger
but I think we've reached saturation, haven't we? I would think we're
so.
At 90% penetration of cell phones now.
But I have people that won't use their cell phones to consume content out where I live because there's one bar and it's a horrible experience.
Right. It's slow, right?
It's slow. So they're not going to consume radio on their phone when they can turn on the radio. Right. And they're not going to consume podcasts because now everyone thinks you just hit play and there's not this knowledge level that's escaped people that you can, by the way, you can download it when you're in town and you can play it when you're at home. That's kind of gone by the wayside.
Yeah.
So again, that's only a percentage of the population. Here in town where I'm at right now, 12 miles from where I'm in a, bandwidth desert, I've got, 5G. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's a tough one. Yeah. I really think it is.
Tom seems to think it's significant. So if you haven't read the article,
yeah, I did.
It sounds profitable.
It was pretty long, and I went through it. And so, what is he telling us to do?
I think it's more to do with the industry kind of embracing radio listeners more,
mm-hmm.
and trying to reach them more, and I think that the crossover between podcasting and radio on mobile devices needs to happen more. So we get those older listeners to find the content that they're already listening to that are on radio more on their mobile devices, I guess.
I got you.
'Cause that's clearly where the trend lines are going. But I think we've kind of pulled that one apart. I should probably get Tom on to kind of dig a little
Yeah,
deeper
I
into
think
that.
so too.
Yeah. But but yeah, I did want to talk about the whole Acast layoffs thing. If we think that that is coming to podcasting, I don't think that we've seen much of that. I think there's so much optimism in the podcast medium right now about its future and its growth that this hasn't happened much. And I think Acast could be a little bit of an anomaly into what's happened, but it's hard to say. You know, I think it depends on how far the economy dips over the next, over the next 18 months, I think is the window of uncertainty here. But it's hard to say, Todd. I don't, back in 2008, we went through this to some degree. And podcasting was relatively unscathed.
But the advertising was nowhere near the level
right, where it is now.
No. But at the same point, if, I keep looking at the number of active episodes that are being produced, and it continues to be a dip, a significant dip.
Of content creation.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And
I wonder if we're going to see a dip in audience because of that.
I did an interview with someone yesterday, and I said, this is as a content creator, if you are just getting started, this is the time to pour the coals on, because this is an opportunity here to be seen.
Right.
Because we are in a little bit dip of content creation. Your content can rise up very, very quickly if you're doing the things you need to do.
Yeah. But Todd, do you think that there's going to be pressure on companies in the industry that's going to result in staff cutbacks?
In advertising, absolutely.
Or do you think that the industry's been operating fairly lean?
Oh, I don't think some of these groups are running lean. Why did Acast just cut 17%? They're overstaffed.
Yeah.
So, but they want to get, they say they want to get to profitability. So that means that they're
right.
That was their reason.
I thought that part of it, and this came out in detail somewhere that I read, that they had overinvested in Mexico or something. And the market for advertising in Mexico really hasn't developed.
I didn't see anything on that.
You didn't? Okay.
I wasn't, I haven't been digging for anything either. So.
Yeah, I know in certain pockets around the world, the podcast advertising market really hasn't developed yet.
I think what you're going to see is it'll play out at first of the year, because a lot of inventory has already been sold through the end of the year. People did year buys, and we'll see.
So you're talking about the impacts of renewals.
Oh yeah, for sure,
right? After the holiday cycle and the political cycles, right?
Yep. We'll see what happens when it comes to that, but where the numbers are at from a, but get in.
Where do we stand with the economy too? I mean, what's going to happen to interest rates and?
Oh, they're going
access up. To cash, right?
And people are struggling, so people are already cutting spending dramatically. Even me. There's stuff I go to the grocery store now I don't get that I used to get because my grocery bill's gotten to the point of absurdity.
Oh yeah, food is completely out of control.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to get any easier for a long time.
And I'm lucky I have access to, I don't buy meat at the grocery store because we put animals in the freezer every year. So, I pay it for a different way.
Yeah.
But protein is
I just don't eat much.
Off the chart.
I just don't eat much. That's my solution.
Well, that's, we still have to eat. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with the economy. I think that so goes the economy. So goes the. There will be cuts in podcast advertising. There's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'll happen. Well, it happened last time, but again, why did we come through unscathed? Why did actually my company grow during 2008? It was because people doubled down on content creation, and people were using that as another method to make sure they got their marketing out. The businesses were building funnels. It was almost like the beginning of the pandemic in 2008 is when all these companies realized, hey, we need to do something more. So I think companies are going to be more strategic on where they spend their social marketing dollars. They may not be buying advertising. They might be creating content to.
Yeah, Todd, I do agree with the premise. If I think kind of more of a historical perspective too, but is that I think that there's been so many new podcast hosting platforms that hosting has become rather commoditized.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And there's a lot of competition in that area. And I do think that a lot of the companies have shifted their models, realizing that there was a lot of competition on that to differentiate by advertising, and building up that side of their business as a hedge against, honestly, free hosting. I think a lot of the hosting platforms felt a little threatened by free hosting. So they needed to build other revenue streams to support the operations.
At the same point, those new entrants in the last 5 years didn't have to pay the penalty that we all had to pay in the early days of getting to scale. To get our prices down, we had to get to scale to get my bandwidth bill has not changed in 15 years or 10 years.
It's gone down, hasn't it?
My volume has grown.
Right.
But my bill stayed.
Your per gigabyte number has gone
right.
down. But since you've grown the downloads, that number stayed the same.
But now people can get into the space today and not have to do that 10-year penalty to scale. They get the same price that is almost the same price I'm getting today without having to have gone and built petabytes of traffic.
Earned it.
Right. Because the hell, if I could have gotten the pricing I'm getting now 10 years ago,
right,
we would have had a whole different model too.
Yeah, Todd, and if I think back even further than that, back when I first started getting into this, there weren't hosting platforms that existed. I had to buy my own servers.
Me too.
Contract my own T1 lines.
My bandwidth bill is $500-600 a month just to do Geek News Central.
Right.
And that was and it was changing servers every 3 days because there wasn't. We'll give you 500 gigs for that price.
Yeah, things have changed a lot.
Thank goodness.
A lot of folks, I guess, don't always think about where this medium came from. I mean, prior to Libsyn's existence, there wasn't anything like that.
There was nothing.
Right.
No.
We were all out there hand coding RSS feeds off of our blogs.
They don't care about that, Rob. That's gone. I know
it is gone. Thank goodness it's gone. I'm tired of putting the wrong comma in my RSS feed and breaking my feed. So
people still break feeds though, but for different reasons. But
right.
So I hope, and that's what. Okay, so I sit on a cash reserve. I've been very protective of my cash reserve.
Mm-hmm.
Religious about my cash reserve.
Because a rainy day fund. Right?
Because I don't have VC.
Right.
And I know how long I can operate if everything goes to zero. And nothing will go completely zero, but I can operate a long time on my cash reserve. And because in the early days, when the market changed and we transitioned our business, we were lucky. Revenue was going down in advertising as revenue from other services was going, and they kind of met in the middle, and we survived.
Right.
But we were lean, very, very lean. And I'm still lean. I still run a very lean operation for what we do.
Yeah.
You know, and when someone says, "Oh, we laid off 80 employees, that was 17% of our workforce," I'm like, I've got 20.
Right. That's like 3 times my whole staff. Right.
You know, I'm just like, really? And actually, without interns, it's closer to 16 or something like that. You know, so it's, you know, we're small, we're lean.
Yeah.
And you know, and I still sometimes choke when I see the monthly expense bill. You know, but
well, I think also, Todd, there's another element to this too. Of, you know, you start looking at the games that have been played by some of the larger players around content acquisition,
right,
and guarantees, things like that. And I think a fair amount of companies have gotten burned on that.
Oh, I feel they've gotten, yeah, it's just throwing good money after bad.
I mean, I understand why it happens.
Sure.
It's very much a competitive landscape, and there's a lot of really great content creators out there that are in a great bargaining position.
Yep.
And companies tend to throw money at that because they want those big names, you know.
But I think there's, I think a lot of those that are being signed are earning significant revenue on advertising dollars.
But it may not be more than what the guarantee is, and that's the problem sometimes.
I don't know how those deals are going to look, but I guarantee you, if someone comes to me and tries to assign Geek News Central, they're going to give me 5 times revenue.
Yeah.
I'm not going for less than 5 times revenue of what I currently have. They want me exclusive, 5 times revenue.
Right.
And it's not going to be some 1 or 2 year commit either. I'm going to get a 3-year deal out of it.
Well, if they're going to do that, they're going to want to have a longer term commitment. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, then that's otherwise. Yeah. Why would I potentially come off a deal for 1 or 2 years and have to almost like start over?
Such as the conundrum of a podcaster like Joe Rogan, right?
Oh, Joe's he can do whatever he wants. Joe's golden. He has nothing to worry about.
No, I'm not saying he does. I'm just saying, you know, he has options. Right. He doesn't have to stay in that Spotify deal.
No, he doesn't. And I don't think a lot of these content creators that are being signed have to stay in those deals. I think they've gotten those deals for a reason. They're doing great revenue. They have great audiences.
Well, it's guaranteed revenue.
It's true.
Right.
I hope it's guaranteed revenue plus. I hope they still keep a big portion of their advertising dollars. You know, because to be honest with you, what are most of those plays for? Most of those plays are for ears. Those are to build volume on their platform.
It's for users is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the game.
Oh, that's why I said ears, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the game that Spotify's playing. It's not listeners, it's users.
But you look at what Amazon and other folks are doing, the deals they've signed, they haven't even broke above 1%. They're nowhere close. Now, maybe they're getting lots of consumption on their app, on their shows, but they surely are not helping anyone else outside of the iHeart family, direct family. And there's absolutely zilch. So, you know, I'm sure they have great success with their internal shows. So,
right.
But
so, I do think in the next year we're going to see increased distribution opportunities, and I do think that video is going to play a stronger role going forward. I do think that there's a lot of pressure on video to do extraordinary things, but that may be unrealistic.
But you got a lot of content creators. Again, that's going to be 10%. 90% of content creators are not going to want to create video. You know, they're not going to want to invest money in a set, in a background.
If you're a company like YouTube,
well, it's, you know,
it's not the perspective, right?
No, but at the same time, YouTube is now competing with TikTok. Their lunch is getting ate by TikTok.
Well,
Why?
same
Why
with
do you think?
Facebook.
Why do you think
Right.
TikTok is under so much pressure by the legislation? Because the lobbyists from YouTube and Google and Apple, they're getting their lunch from dollars going to TikTok. So of course there's going to be a campaign to badmouth them. So what is YouTube now getting ready to announce? Lower tiers to earn money on the platform. You won't have to have 100,000 listener hours to earn money. All I want on YouTube is for the people that are watching live the ability to send me a tip. Turn that on for me. Why not? I'll give YouTube a cut of that. Why can't
Right.
I be part of their partner program?
Right.
I might be
Yeah.
more inclined to promote YouTube if I was able to earn some revenue value for value from them, but they're not.
Right.
So where are we at? Come to the website, hit the PayPal link.
Right.
We don't push that on this show, but I do on my other show.
And we're not necessarily pushing Patreon here. So
Right.
just to establish that ground. So
time will tell here where this ball bounces, but I think creators are never by these big corporations are in their best interest. They say they are, but in the end they've got to make their numbers for corporate America.
yeah. Tom also put in his article that he wrote, he says, two dudes rapping about the Cubs is not a podcast. It's a cry for help. Build a show. Your competition isn't another Cubs podcast. It's TikTok. So think about the complexion of that quote.
Yeah, well, I just wonder if Tom is not a Cubs fan.
Right. Yeah. I don't think that's what the purpose of the quote was, but that's
I know.
yeah, but it's a telling quote, actually. I do think that one of the reasons that Facebook got out of podcasting was because of TikTok. So
well, it's I just buyer beware. You go on these platforms, you have to understand they can change the terms at any moment, and they're going to make sure that they fill their pockets before they fill yours, and you have to know the goal of what you want to accomplish out of those platforms.
yeah, and what's the potential role that TikTok could play in podcasting?
Well, I think some people are being
That's an
very
interesting
effective
question.
in doing shorts to, but again, that takes you gotta record content, then you gotta edit content, and then you gotta create, so you gotta grind. That's work.
I mean, if TikTok is going to become the new next YouTube, which I think they're clearly on track to challenge YouTube.
For certain content.
I don't know. These platforms are converging on each other, Todd.
Well, the last thing I want to see is what's in my TikTok feed in YouTube. TikTok takes me down some really weird holes.
It
Don't-
does.
Don't ever heart certain types of content because it will suck you down into it and it'll take you 20 minutes to get out.
Yeah, but you know that Facebook and these other platforms are going to adopt TikTok practices, right?
Yeah.
And they already are. So and then TikTok is going to adopt Facebook's longer form content. That's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I don't want to watch long form content on TikTok. I go
Yeah.
to TikTok to get my dopamine fix and then I'm done.
right. That's what we used to say about YouTube too. Remember, it was only short content.
Yeah,
On-
but I
on
don't
YouTube
watch
now. It's like the whole spectrum.
I don't watch any. I think the shortest videos I watch on YouTube now are like 40 minutes. It's between people building
It's
their
a lot
houses.
longer than it used to be, Todd.
Well, it's between people building their house in the wilderness or on a sailboat, or it's.
well, I
There's
agree.
channels on YouTube where people don't even talk. They just
And some of those are the biggest ones making
Right.
the most money.
they don't say
Right.
nothing.
Right.
They just, it's
Like a nature scene, or it could be like a fireplace burning.
there was,
an apple rotting.
I came out of the shower this morning. I had the TV turned on. I had watched a YouTube series I watched, and it had skipped to something else. And it was some girl eating food. That's all she was doing, was eating food. And I'm like, what is this? Get me out of this. Why do I watch someone eat?
But that's the kind of content that's on TikTok, right?
That's mostly,
Well, not in a complete picture.
Yeah.
But that kind of stuff exists over there too.
I see a lot of TikTok people trying to get people moved to Instagram. A lot of Instagram people trying to get people to go to TikTok. Go to my YouTube channel. Watch the rest of the content. They use it as a teaser.
Yeah, I hate to say, but the Instagram platform is not the best place to be these days.
Oh, I don't tread there very much, but a lot of people do. Certain creative types do.
There's just a lot of scammers going on over there.
I have not run into any of that.
You haven't?
Business or what type of scammers?
Just all sorts of different kinds of, people reaching out, trying to entice you to do this or entice you to do that.
I don't get any of that. And I don't read any messages that come in on Instagram. I ignore it all. If they're not a direct friend, it just stacks up. I don't read any of it.
And it's the same thing, and it's come up in the podcast trades, or actually on Twitter here recently, about the podcast promoters.
They're just
on LinkedIn.
They're just out of control.
Yeah, constantly pinging you, and they're getting actually more and more aggressive.
I probably get 25 or 25 LinkedIn requests a week from promoters. Yeah, right. And then at least most of them say promoter in their description, so I can ignore them. And those that don't, they send me a message and I block them.
Yeah, it's only been recently that they've started to drop using the term iTunes.
To be honest with you, LinkedIn is great in some instances, but it is the biggest spam machine out there. True professionals,
right?
Cold emailing me, it drives me crazy. I have a very public email address. Why can't they? Well, I guess it's good. My inbox isn't full of their crap, so they reach out on LinkedIn. It's really odd.
Well, it takes more effort to send an email, because on LinkedIn, they'll actually prompt you and say, click this button to write the text for you.
Right. I think I'm up to like 6,000 followers or something like that on LinkedIn. And I probably have gotten 100 good contacts over the years.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Oh, well. Yeah.
Anyway, we've talked a lot about stuff today that isn't podcasting, but we did talk about a bunch of stuff that is. And I don't know.
That's good.
It's an interesting time in the space right now. It'd be interesting to have Dave on next week.
Yeah. Dave Jones from Podcast Index.
We can pick his brain for a whole hour.
We're going to talk about all those new podcast namespace tags. Right.
Absolutely. Are you guys ready to have your brains explode next week? Tell all your friends to be here. It's going to be good. Yep. So, and of course, I did hurt Dave's brain. And we heard him we hurt his brain. You got to love it, though, because they don't care about advertising at Podcast 2.0. They really don't. It's actually advertising, podcast advertising in the Podcast 2.0 space is kind of like pew pew, and we don't care.
Well, they're an accurate reflection of the origins of this medium.
Yeah, for sure.
Adam wasn't about advertising.
No. So as he puts it, all advertisers would have already fired him. Because
he doesn't have advertising on his show.
And no filter either. So stuff John says on there makes me sometimes go, whoa, Yeah. John is, and Adam's show, John is the one now that surprised me. He says stuff to me like, man, if you were on
let's be honest, it's when you start adding advertising to your show, you have to
Yeah.
think twice a little bit more about the stuff you talk about,
That's
right?
right.
Yeah.
And they don't have to. No
Right.
filter.
Yep. And that's a little bit of the reason why, in the early days of podcasting, advertising wasn't highly looked upon.
Yeah, that's why I
know, I
lost.
got-
That's why I lost a bunch of my audience when I announced I had a sponsor. I lost a bunch of my audience when I announced I'd signed a book deal and actually got paid. Imagine that.
Yeah.
The attitudes. That was by the listeners. That wasn't podcasters. That was listeners revolting. You took money to write a book? How dare you?
I mean, that's a good segue into this Satoshi stuff, right? So
Yeah.
podcasters have direct relationships with
Yep.
audience,
Yep.
right, and get direct support, which is what Adam has been doing for years
Yep.
on his show.
Yeah, I if I could replicate that model, Rob, then we would have a. Of course, Adam's looking for his exit plan, and I'm like, wow, that sounds like a heck of a entrance plan. To be able to replicate what they do is it's impressive.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of podcasters, if they could replicate, that's life changing money they earn on that show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And I'm not against advertising. It just has a place in the medium as proportion to people's desire to participate. So, yeah.
But well, anyway, we're close to the end here. Believe it or not, we made it.
We
So,
always make it, Todd.
yeah,
We always make it.
we do. So I hope you've enjoyed the podcast today, and yes, we're approaching. We're getting closer to being able to light things up and do the lit piece. So I'm just finding times here and there to implement stuff while I'm still trying to run a company and and keep the employees paid. You got to make payroll. That's the goal.
Well, Todd, I was wearing the spirit of Podfest today.
Oh,
So that's the next big
I had a discussion about Podfest yesterday.
podcasting event that's on the horizon here.
Yeah, I've got an email out to them. We want to see the entire floor layout and where the breakout rooms are, where all, aka all, the booths are, not just the ones that we got shown last year.
That's a good point. That's a good
Yes.
point. Yeah.
And we went. Also, actually went and Googled to see if VidFest had updated. There's been no updates on that page for VidFest, and I looked at some Bitcoin stuff to make sure there'd been no updates for some Bitcoin, making sure that Podfest is going to be Podfest and not a combination of two other things.
Well, Todd, before we leave here, do you think that there's an opportunity for Podfest more now since what happened to Podcast Movement?
No.
No?
He's got to get out of this regional mindset.
Yeah. Well, I can't disagree with that.
Nope. Yeah, if you can draw significant numbers from all 50 states, and there's an opportunity, but I don't think so.
What do we think he should do to make it so? Do you think he should have that event in other cities around the country? Is that what you're thinking?
I don't think they have the organization to do it.
I see what you're saying.
I don't
Okay.
think so. The communications, I love what he's done, but the communications over there is horrible.
Yeah. Do we think there's going to be any changes with Podcast Movement going forward?
That's up to Podcast Movement.
Yeah, I think
we'll
it's an
see.
interesting question to ponder.
Mm-hmm.
What the fallout is going to be after that.
I'm implementing. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be implementing what I had planned to do before. I'm not going to go into details on it, but the value that I'm getting out of trade shows right now is
Is
waned.
rough. It's rough.
I'm
right?
not getting ROI. Some events I have to go to wave the flag to say we're still here, but I'm not getting ROI out of the events.
Why is that, do you think? Is it more to do with attendance?
It's attraction of new content creators.
or the
you and I-
interest of people in creating new content.
You and I are both in the customer acquisition business.
Yeah, we are.
And if I can't go to an event and have an appreciable acquisition of new customers out of the event, why do I need to go?
Well, I can answer that, but I think that's not the top.
No.
That's not the top
True.
Reason. Right.
Yeah,
So-
like I said, to wave the flag and say we're still here, and
Right.
the networking and all that.
Yeah.
But can I accomplish that without a booth? Just get a meeting room,
Probably.
probably.
There's a lot of talk about that concept, and also talk about maybe a different kind of event. I know you and I are not always happy with how these things are organized.
No,
Um,
especially the networking events.
Oh, especially. Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely. And I think the big thing for me is the extremely loud music.
Right.
I think there's others that feel the same way. I don't feel that's an unusual opinion, given especially what we've seen over the last few years. It's only gotten worse.
There is a huge. We go to the events to talk to content creators and get ideas and learn what they're doing. But when you are in a after hours event and it's 8,000 decibels and you lose your voice just trying to talk to someone, there's no networking there. That's
It defeats the whole purpose of being there.
right. And so that's why I just avoided some parties, because it's just some people like to go and have fun and have free drinks. That's cool. But it's not where business is. It's not where ideas are being formed. It's not where relationships. It's not where partnerships are being developed. That doesn't happen at parties anymore. They used to.
Yeah, I think it's about, just turning the music down. I think we can still have the same parties and still have the same fun.
Sure.
But just turn the decibels down by half.
Let's go 75%.
75%. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I was willing to take at least half. So, I think it's a very simple solution. And I just don't understand why it's taken us 10 years to convince the industry that it needs to happen.
Because, Rob, they've spent $100,000 to throw a party. And it's a party. It's not a networking event. It's a party. So.
But at a podcast conference, a networking event party is the same thing.
Rob, we're old. So we
No,
also
we're
have to,
I'm not old. No, but see, Todd, that's why I say half the volume.
Yeah.
because I do think that people want to have that experience of loud music, but it doesn't have to be so loud
Mm-hmm.
that, like, I can't even talk. I mean,
Right.
my voice frequency is so low, and I'm so tall that by the time my voice makes it down to someone's ear, nobody's hearing it.
And being that we've been talking all day, I don't necessarily want to get right up in someone's face either.
And that's what you ultimately have to do.
Right.
Is like you have to talk directly into their ear.
Yep.
And that isn't the best thing too for trying to prevent spread of disease.
Right. Right.
So
COVID.
So yeah, right. So, it just feels like we're shooting ourselves in the foot. And
But
it's a
we've
very
asked
simple
and asked
thing.
and asked till we're blue in the face. It's not going to happen unless there's something
Actually,
else.
I gave up for the last couple of years.
Me too.
I just haven't said anything.
Yeah.
So I just either go or you just don't go.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you can be guaranteed if it's one of those music groups that's sponsored the event, they're gonna
Or the radio group.
have
whatever.
it cranked
Right.
up.
Right. If they're a music and bring in,
Some of the best events I've
Celebrities.
went to is where it was lounge style. Yeah, everyone's sitting around, co-mingling, hanging out.
that's why the bar down in the
Yep.
lobby has always been a popular place.
but the problem with the last bar was it was so intermixed with other groups that you didn't know
Who was who?
who was
Right.
who. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But it is what
All
it
right.
is. All right,
I guess-
everyone.
I guess we've gone long again.
Yeah, it's okay. Todd at blueberry.com at Geek News is my Twitter account. And Rob?
I'm on Twitter too at Rob Greenlee and robgreenlee.com. And you can send me an email if you want to reach out to me, robg@lipson.com, and happy to hear from you. And give us any kind of leads or tips on things that are going on in the industry. We would love to hear it, and we can talk about it on the show. And we'll keep a steady stream of cool guests coming on the show. But Todd and I always enjoy these solo together shows.
Gives me a
So-
chance to get caught up on my rants.
Right. And we haven't done a lot of those lately. So there's
No.
always been a lot of guests either on stage or
And we haven't gotten any like super secret stuff lately. So maybe people don't want to whisper in our ear anymore.
I think a lot of people in this industry are starting to get pretty competitive. So
Yeah.
people are quiet.
Yeah. And I like to blab. So
Especially on this show, right?
that's
Yeah.
right. All right, everyone. Thanks for being here. And we'll be back next Wednesday, same channel. Again, we've got to check out newmeshow.com/live. Stuff will be in replay. There'll be 2-3 shows in replay over there. If you want to use our live stream, again, I'm going to make this available to really any podcaster that wants to use it. Would have a few rules that go along with it. But let me know, and I'll set you up as they call it a DJ, set you up with an account and some time slots, and let me know. And again, we're trying to just try to experiment and have fun with space.
Yeah.
So thanks, everyone, for being here. We'll see you next time. Everyone, take care.
Thanks.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.